No? Okay, well, thank you.
All yours.
That was quite impressive. Wow. Good afternoon. When the Knights first asked me to speak, my first thoughts were, I don't know if I'm in the same arena as previous speakers, so I was incredibly humbled. My second thought was, what on earth am I going to say? So I took some time and just, did some prayer, did some discernment, and what kept coming back to me was, how is my faith at work in my everyday life? And why do I do what I do? Why do I volunteer at school events or parish events or pastoral council? And that's kind of just kept coming back to me. So bear with me a little bit while I go backwards to get to where I really want to talk about. So as Don said, I grew up in Hinckley. I was the youngest. I had 3 older brothers. My grandparents and my mom were Catholic and really had a strong influence on my life as I grew up. I remember saying rosaries with my grandmother, when I'd spend the week with her, going to church with her out in Garfield Heights, and just remember that strong faith that she had. Went to Highland High School, and as I was filling out all my college applications, I, like many kids that age, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I was looking at physical therapy, I was looking at nursing, I was looking at becoming a lawyer, thought I'd be a great social activist. And as I applied to Case Western, one of the nursing instructors reached out to me and said, how about you come down to University Hospital and shadow for a day? And I said, okay, that sounds great. So I went to the neonatal intensive care unit at University Hospital, and I saw this nurse do incredible things. And that is one of my first memories of God being in my life and saying, hey, this is what you should be doing. Because we all have those moments where, where maybe we're praying or just feeling a little lost and struggling on, what do I do? What's my path? Where should I be? I really feel like God put me in that NICU that day to see that nurse do that stuff, to be like, this is it. So that kind of became my nursing career. Went to Kent State University, graduated with a bachelor's in nursing. While I was there, I met my husband and worked at Ardmore. Ardmore is a social service agency that works with adults in the community and in group homes with disabilities. And I feel like, again, God put me there, not only to meet my wonderful husband, who I've been married to for 21 years, but also we have 2 kids with autism. So I feel like that work at Ardmore helped prepare me a little bit for some of the challenges we would face there. So when I'm looking at my life as an adult and going, okay, God's pretty active in my life, right? And there's times where I'm struggling or not getting things, and he taps me on the shoulder and is like, hey, back over here. So graduated from nursing school, bounced around a little bit in my nursing career, had more kids, somehow ended up here at St. Vincent. And that was because of the education that they were doing with kids with disabilities that really brought us here. So we've been parishioners now about 11 years. And in that time, my husband and I really just felt like, what is really the best way we can teach our kids that volunteering and serving is part of our faith, but it's just part of what we should do. So that's kind of why we became active first in the school community, because it's a great way to meet parents too. So he started coaching because he's Mr. Athlete, Mr. Runner, so he coaches cross country and track, and he did basketball for 10 years. This was his first year he didn't coach basketball. So we got a break in the winter, but he coaches cross country and track. For CYO, I did some volleyball, I did some soccer, and it was a great way to get to know the kids, but also try to teach that CYO, how can we bring our faith into everything we do, whether it's a sport, whether it's being kind to each other at practice, including everybody. We just really looked at it as this is our way to try to start give back and to model our faith for our kids, because that's the best thing that we can do as parents. I got involved with the school. I did some of the silent auctions back in the day. I was on the community council. And then that led me to Parish Pastoral Council, which I've been a member of for, maybe about 4 years now, 5 years. And I'm the liaison for the Day School Commission and the Faith at Work Commission, which Faith at Work fits perfectly into kind of a little bit of what I'm talking about today and just what we can do every day in our daily lives. But also when I came to the school, right around that time was when I started working in hospice as an RN. And this was a really big moment in my life for me where I could really start bringing my faith into what I do every day. And it was another moment for me when I look back on it, because you never get it at the moment, but when you look back on it and you can say, oh, this is exactly what God wants me to be doing. So just a few things about hospice really quick so it'll help you to kind of start to understand where I'm going. A lot of people think that hospice is a place you go when you're getting ready to pass away, and it really isn't. It's a philosophy of care, and about 90% of all hospice care takes place in a person's home. And the majority of the care given is by friends and family. A lot of people think it's like the care center that you go to up on Ridgewood, which is a beautiful place. And it definitely is part of that hospice care. But most people, when they're enrolled in hospice, actually spend 65 to 70 days on hospice care. So that's that nurse coming in and out of somebody's home, or the aides and the social workers and the chaplains. And over that 65 to 70 days, you see a person's health decline slowly. So they may come on board and may be able to still be independent and run errands and cook their own food, get their own medications, but as time goes on, it's harder to get out of that chair. You don't have the energy to cook a meal. You don't have the energy to do your own bathing and grooming. So that's when you really start to see gaps in care. And when I was a hospice nurse, I would go into patients' homes and I'd start seeing this. So I start seeing these gaps. Then a series of events leads me to not being able to make visits in the home. Our car was broken into and it needed a whole lot of work. And so my boss came to me and said, well, you know what? You can't really make visits without a car, and I don't really want to pay you to not work. So can you come into the office and help me? I said, absolutely, sure. So I go spend a week in the office and I'm scheduling visits and I'm helping the staff in the homes and I'm doing, at the end of the week she comes to me and she says, hey, you're kind of good at this. Will you apply for the job? I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm per diem, I make my own schedule, I like my life. Now you want me to work full time? What? So I prayed and I discerned, and again, another big moment for me of God putting me where he wants me to be, to put me on the path he has meant for me. So after prayer and discernment, I come to, you know what, that job is the right job for me. So I become a manager. I'm a manager for about 6 years. And in that time, I continue to see patients who are falling through the gaps. And I loved my job. But about 5 years ago, there was just a period in my life where I felt restless. And I felt like, there's gotta be more. I love my staff, I love my job, I love what I do, but something's missing. So I went back to prayer, went back to discernment. I was speaking with one of the physicians that I work with, and I was telling him a little bit about how I was feeling and the struggles I'm seeing with the patients we're caring for and the gaps that are there. And he says, hey, have you ever heard about Malachi House? I said, I know about Malachi House, but I don't really know what it is. What is it? So he says, well, it's a home up in Cleveland that cares for the terminally ill that are homeless or essentially the working poor. He said, let's go take a visit. I'm like, all right, what's that gonna hurt? So we go up, we make a site visit, and I leave Malachi House and I said, that's it. This is what I know I need to do. It just felt like, again, God put me where I needed to be, and he's saying to me, go do this. So I come back to Hospice Summa, and I'm telling people about it. I'm like, this is great. There's all these people we take care of that fall through the gaps, and there's got to be a way we can do this, right? So I'm talking to another physician and to our RN educator at the time, and they say, we have some friends that you should talk to. So Cindy says, my husband, Nick, he helps people do this, so let's talk to Nick. So Nick is now my board chair. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, and I'll come back. I take Nick up there to Malachi House to make a site visit in 2014, June 27th, and I only remember that because it was my husband's birthday. So we're going on close to 5 years. But Nick comes back with me and he says, this is exactly what Akron needs. There's no home like this in Akron, and I think we could do this. So here's the idea for Grace House. So you guys, heard about Grace House when you're coming in the door. But again, it's another situation where I don't believe any of these little steps or things happening in my life have been coincidence. I think that this has been God preparing me along the way for the work that I should be doing. Also, at the same time, I was reading a book on Mother Teresa. I think I'm getting some interference, sorry. Called Conversations with Mother Teresa. And I was right at the part where she was starting her first hospice house in Calcutta. And I just thought, man, there's something to that. Or taking your people off the street, your neediest, your people who have no one, your most vulnerable, and you're just loving them. And you're giving them basic needs. So for me, going back to everything I'm doing throughout all these years, it's about that basic pillar of our faith of loving others and serving. And there's not a better lesson here than with Grace House. So with Grace House, after Nick decided to come on board and we're starting to form our board, we took about a year to reach out to other individuals in the community and form our board. And man, I have a fantastic board. I have the best board in town. They are amazing, dedicated people. And I don't know if anybody's ever started a nonprofit. I had no nonprofit experience, so I didn't think this would take 5 years, but just applying with the IRS takes a year. It's crazy. It took us about 10 months just to get the application approved. So we formed our board, we applied for a nonprofit status, and then in August of 2017, we were approved. So we actually became a legitimate nonprofit. Then we took that time over the next year to look for land. And again, I didn't think that would be so hard. We looked at existing structures, land, buildings, sharing space, a little bit of everything. Finally, we are in the process of closing on some land. So my goal is to actually be opening Grace House, which is going to serve the terminally ill that do not have a caregiver or cannot afford a caregiver. Our goal is to open hopefully in 2020. We'll see if we run into any zoning issues or anything like that. I hope not. Hope everything goes smoothly. But it's going to be a 6-bedroom home and there's no charge for folks to come stay in the home. Most of the services are going to be offered as volunteers. So most of my staff are going to be volunteers. I'll have a total of 8 paid staff members. So we're trying to keep our budget as bare bones as possible because it's our job to provide the shelter, the food, the water, and the caregivers. The hospices will come in and provide the hospice care and the management of all the hospice specific problems. So we'll work with all the hospices in the area, but it's for all those folks who are homeless. When I was a manager at SUMA, we took care of people at Haven of Rest, which had incredible challenges. We took care of people in hotels and motels, and we ran across people who, were in situations that just weren't dignified. So the goal for Grace House is to allow everybody a death with dignity. And I really do feel it's become my life purpose and what God wants me to do, because looking back at it, I don't think it's coincidence that I've met all the people I've needed to make Grace House happen. I have to believe that is God putting me where He wants me to be to make this happen. And so with my faith and the service that I give and the things I do with the school or the parish or Grace House, it's really because I feel like it's my calling and it's what I should be doing, and it's the best example I can be for my kids. I can lecture them and I can go on, and I'll eye roll with them because I'm like, okay, I just said something to you I swore I would never say. But that's only going to go so far. I have to make them see what I'm doing, that's going to be the best example of our faith. So I'm going to end with one of my favorite Mother Teresa quotes, because I know we have a lot of people to recognize, and this is such a great day. But Mother Teresa once said, "I'm not exactly sure what heaven would be like, but I know when we die, it comes time for God to judge us. He will not ask, how many good things have you done in your life? Rather, he will ask, how much love did you put into what you did?" Thank you.